I was kind of surprised to see Scott and you today because I know that it was a late night and early morning.
It's a sense of responsibility, Tim. It's one I've had since day one here in 2004 when I started working here.
You've practiced this.
Yes.
This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Leupold, American to the core.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast, episode number 178. It's titled A Couple Killers.
Booyah.
You're one of the killers.
And you're the other.
And you're Matt.
And you're Tim.
That's right. Let's get that out of the way.
Hey, we're both a little delirious because we had late nights.
We're working on 5-ish hours of sleep. So
those nights weren't together. They were separate.
Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate that.
Oh, you never know.
We have good news to report.
That's right. So you killed a nice buck.
Yeah, and you killed a nice buck also. We are the couple killers.
Much to everyone's surprise.
It's one of those, it never happens like you think it's going to happen, right?
No. Although I did think it was going to happen yesterday.
Well, we got this, it's been poor and bad DeerCast predictions.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's a great in there.
Yeah.
And so we both snuck out of the office a little early yesterday and it was worth it.
Yeah. So, as you look into that 10-day forecast on DeerCast and you're kind of trying to pinpoint when to hunt, we're in a crappy time moon phase wise, but weather trumps moon. Mark and Terry talk about that all the time. And so it was so hot the past few days.
How hot was it, Matt?
Real hot. Am I supposed to click a sound?
We should just keep moving probably.
Okay. So anyhow, it was like mid 80s over the weekend. And, I even did an Instagram story about it. It's like, hey, you should take the time to just get some honeydews in and, help out around the house, spend some time with the family. We threw a little get together on Saturday, had some friends over, had a bonfire. The kids, had a great time and just did some family stuff. But as I was checking, I said it in my hero last night, and I think actually in my DeerCast now or the journal, one of the two, those trail cameras have just changed how I hunt so much. And so for me, this is the first year I'm late to the game, but this is the first year that I really started using the cell cameras.
Yeah.
I never had a good signal on my farm.
Makes it tough.
And so I just never really messed with it. And the new cameras, they got those double antennas coming out of it and I get a signal. And who knows, maybe there's a new tower somewhere. I get a signal now.
Yeah.
And it's just really helped hone in on what's happening. I don't feel like I'm missing out quite as much. The FOMO, which is a real thing. I don't really have it anymore on that piece. The river farm, I'm kind of blind. I don't have any cell cameras down there, but I always know, I feel like when they're moving, if it's not that necessarily I'm seeing the bucks, but it's the deer movement.
You're getting a sense of the trends and what's happening.
Exactly.
Sure.
And I said it the other day I think I was talking to, maybe it was Kelly Turner and I were on the phone together and he was like, man, I've been telling all my friends here at work how legitimate DeerCast is the prediction. It's just how good
it was made up.
Well, that's if you go to the Missouri Deer Hunters Facebook page, that's exactly right. So, but a lot of other people are having great success with it. And he was telling me that story and I go, you know what? So I've always had a lot of faith in what Mark and Terry have what I've learned from them.
Sure.
But being able to look at these pictures as they're coming in real time with the prediction and then kind of the description of why deer are moving when and all the things I've always heard them talk about, honestly, it was kind of like a light bulb thing. Not to say I was just going through the motions before, but I was hunting a front. I was hunting certain pressure. Whatever. Just because it's kind of what I've heard them say and talk about over and over and over. You hear these things long enough, you're going to pick up on something. Right. And the correlation between the pictures and what DeerCast is doing, really a light bulb went off for me this year and I've been able to see it. And this is maybe as early as I've ever had success. And I'm not saying it's just because that we got the farm really honed in this year and, we put in a lot of effort in the off season, Scott especially, and we're honed in, but all those things added up to give us a chance at success, and we capitalized off of it.
So before we dig into the tale of $2, let's do our Mossy Oak Properties featured dirt, because we got some dirt this week.
All right. So the Mossy Oak Properties featured dirt this week is a 255 acre piece in Clay County, Mississippi. It has massive deer, turkeys, and waterfowl. And I know those guys down in the South, those are all very important things to them.
Yeah.
All right. So the plots are planted, the feeders are full, and the wildlife is abundant. This track has it all and is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle. Tibbee Creek frontage, excellent road system, shooting houses, diverse habitat. This property is ready to go. Call Mossy Oak Property agent Fred Zepponi at 662-418-6767 or just Google Mossy Oak Properties 54227.
And we'll have the link in the show notes.
I'm pretty sure I got that guy's name right too.
You didn't, and it's my fault.
What?
Because he's Fred Zepponi the third. And I left out the third because I thought it might throw you a little bit.
You're a jerk.
I know.
What? I can't read numerals?
I didn't know if you'd be trying to count
Roman numerals just throw me. Now, Roman numerals are hard.
How do you cipher this?
But that one would have just been 3 eyes. I think I could have got it. Well,
next time you'll get the eyes.
There's always next time.
Right. How about we hop into some shout outs next?
All right. So I don't really have a sound effect, but I'm going to just say,
I can't read.
It's unfortunate for this next section because it requires reading. Just so people know, we love to get your feedback. So
good or bad? I actually prefer the bad ones because I like to roast your butt online here.
Mine or
no. The people that send us crappy reviews.
Okay, yeah, we'll make fun of you.
Yeah. So send it.
If you have feedback, let us know in the DeerCast comments because we post every show in DeerCast. You can also post comments or post feedback on your whatever podcast app you're using to listen to us.
And, we never really ask this, but if you're enjoying the podcast, share it. Subscribe to if you listen to it, subscribe to it, share it with friends, let people know. We've really seen a big increase in growth over the past few months. We appreciate all you guys for listening, and gals, maybe one or two, not our wives. We established that already.
It's our safe space.
Maybe your mom, maybe my mom. Listen, see what little Timmy, little Maddie are doing.
My mom will, because I have another podcast that I do that a very few people listen to. And my mom will tell me, yeah, I just read your latest podcast, or I just watched your latest podcast. There's no video version of it. And
she's lying to you.
After a while, I've just learned to say,
thanks, Mom.
Thanks. I don't know what in the world you're watching or reading, but thank you.
Did you say, did you like it and dig in? Like
I don't know. I don't want to make it uncomfortable.
More than it already is. She's lying to you.
She's supportive, but she's lying also.
All right. So the first shout out, Dan Snyder says, awesome listening to some new cooking ideas. I was intrigued by listening to how to cook the deer heart because I just made one last night. I think he was referring to our last guest, right?
Yeah, Chef Michael Hunter.
That was a pretty cool podcast. And as Scott and I were working on the deer, and then Trevor, I was seeing a lot of the sections that he was talking about. And then I thought, I can't do any of that. So I'm just going to go get some overly dog made out of all of it.
My shot somehow clipped both lungs and punctured part of the stomach. And so, because I wanted to try to use the caul fat. Quartering away.
How'd it get to the stomach?
No. So you're right. Yeah, quartering two.
I see. You're a liar.
And
you, sir, are a liar.
Actually, I didn't kill a deer at all. I shot a raccoon.
I haven't seen the video yet.
It was a really big raccoon.
I heard it was so dark that it could be a raccoon.
What is that? Is it a dog or what? But it stunk like 1,000 farts.
And I meant the footage was dark before anybody gets up in arms. All right.
Denny Latchik, our buddy. Denny's the guy that won the farm.
We love Denny
last year. I think Denny loves us also, which is great.
Commendable, because I don't know who else would.
Just our parents. Okay.
Not even.
So Denny says, great. And this, again, is in reference to Michael Hunter last week. Great idea to have a chef on the show and provide some much needed insight on how to improve the quality of your venison or wild game. Totally impressed on how much knowledge Tim has on butchering and cooking wild game.
What?
Totally lost on some of the concepts, laugh out loud, but very informative.
Well, Denny used to be one of my favorite people.
Denny.
Tim, knowledgeable.
You pretty much took the wind out of my sails.
The farts out of your butt. All right. So what's next? You tell your story first.
Okay. So it really is a tale of two bucks because you have a ton of history with your deer. Pictures. I mean, and my deer, I went into a valley that I hung a set in this summer. I haven't been in there since I hung the set and put a camera up.
How many acres are we talking here?
This is 180-ish.
It's a big piece.
Yeah, it is. And it's Ozark foothill mountain. So it's very rugged. It's oak hickory forest. And this was up a pretty, in the Ozarks, they call them hollers. It was up a holler. I took the dry creek bed up and the wind. The crick bed. That's what I grew up calling it, was a crick.
Continue.
The wind was supposed to be relatively consistent last night, but when you get into those deep hollers, it always swirls.
Yeah.
But I knew like it's predominantly the right direction. I'll be at the bottom, so when the thermals take over, the wind will be kind of drifting down towards the bottom of the creek, which is where I was. I did throw on some of the nose jammer on my boots as I went in because I knew that deer would be crossing over my tracks and crossing because I walked the dry creek bed up to my stand. And I just didn't want to give them any reason to be cautious because the place I know is loaded with those. Yeah. It's next to a big old abandoned pasture that's grown up for probably 25 years or so. So it's incredible bedding. There are a ton of deer back up in there. So I was seeing deer immediately. I got in the stand maybe around 3:30, 4 o'clock.
About when we did.
And seeing a ton of deer. And really for me, it was a matter of just trying not to get blown while I was in the stand because they were all over the place. This guy came down the hillside. I'm guessing it was around 6:20, 6:30 or so. The challenge with hunting deep in one of those hollers is that the sun sets a lot earlier for you. Yeah. It gets dark so much earlier. Yeah. And I could probably see maybe 100 plus yards up the ridge, and I could see a bigger body deer coming. And so I've got 2 Tacticams on my bow. I've got a Tacticam on one of those Hawk kind of mountable grips, and then I've got obviously my bigger camera there. So self filming, there's a lot of stuff to manage. Yeah,
but with those Tacticams, were you using the remote?
Yeah.
So that does help make it a little easier. You click the remote and they all sync up.
Exactly. Yeah. It saves you a number of steps. And so he starts coming down.
1, 2, 3.
You can count the steps. The deer starts coming down the hillside there, and I can see him moving between the oaks. And it's all, you and I have talked about this before. It's amazing, especially in the timber, because they can go infinite directions. Yeah. But he starts coming my direction, kind of paralleling the creek down. And so I'm turning cameras on and everything. But I can't really tell just how big of a deer he is. I can just tell he's got some mass because at that time of day, you kind of see like distortion in the woods around their rack. You can't really see a whole lot of definition. So I'm getting ready and he stops. He's crunching on acorns. Like he's just going around like a vacuum cleaner, sucking up acorns. And he gets about 25 yards and he starts kind of strafing across the camera. And so I have to bump the camera back over to get him. And I as I'm watching him, I'm thinking, I think I have bigger deer on camera, but he's here. My daughter wants to kill a deer really bad this year. My wife has indicated interest in going out hunting. So if I can kill this deer, this opens up some more opportunities for me. And I had the monkey on my back from last year, not killing a buck at all. So I thought I'm going to shoot this deer. And it's funny what happens to your emotions, your mind when you decide, okay, I'm turning into a predator here. I'm gonna try to take this animal's life. I got the claws out. So I come to full draw, and it was the first deer I've drawn on all year, and that's kind of a fun thing to finally put a pin on the deer. And I executed the release. My nocturnal did not light up, which was kind of a bummer because it would have looked great in the woods there, and
on camera. That's pretty cool seeing it fly through there.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to see.
Helps you, especially as it's getting a little darker. It does help you figure out where you shot the
exactly, because I'm shooting the Matthews VXR, the 28, and I'm shooting around 65 pounds of draw weight. The arrow moves pretty quick. That's right.
$200 is $200.
Oh, fancy.
So I take the shot, and I couldn't watch the arrow. Like I didn't see where the arrow impacted, but the deer kind of runs a loop at maybe gets out to 30 yards and stands there looking back. And I'm thinking, did I hit him? Like what happened? And then he gets wobbly and he just falls over.
Nice.
And
No track job.
I guess that happened.
Yeah.
It's like I said before, I'm always amazed because you never know how it's going to go down. In my mind, it's never like I envision it. There's something different about it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it all came together like that relatively early in the season, it was such a relief.
So now were you far back in there? Meaning, was it kind of a bear to get it out?
Yeah, I didn't do the mileage on Onyx, but it wasn't in miles. I was probably back there maybe 400 yards or so, but it's all rocky. It's all down trees and stuff for some timbering that was done. Yeah, thankfully, DeerCast contributors Jeremy Kerber and Nick Lape came out.
Nice.
Nick is a large man. He's a power lifter, so that helped a lot. They were able to help with pictures and everything. I still follow the blood trail a little bit because that's part of the fun too.
Yeah.
Following a blood trail, it's even more fun when you know where the deer went down,
just to see what you got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The arrow looked good and everything. But like I said, I clipped both lungs and got the stomach. So I was like, ooh, I've got some unpleasant work to do later on tonight.
Yeah.
So we got out of there, I don't know, closer to 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Shot the deer around 6:30 or so.
Yep.
Waited for those guys to get there. But I'm just so thankful to have that deer, to have that experience and to be reminded like, okay,
I'm a man still.
I am still a bow hunter, because otherwise you just feel like you're sadly over equipped.
But especially these days. I mean, with
Got a lot
what
of
we're
gadgets.
going out there with, cameras and latest tech on the bows and the clothes you wear and the ozone, and
We're very fortunate, and I'm thankful for all the resources that I have to hunt. It does also add a layer of complexity to it, because like, well, you have pretty much every advantage a person could hope for.
what's your problem?
Right? Yeah, maybe it's me.
Yes, I got that feeling before too.
So I got to sneak peek your hunt footage this morning because Scott came in, and I was kind of surprised to see Scott and you today, because I know that it was a late night and early morning.
It's a sense of responsibility, Tim. It's one I've had since day one here in 2004 when I started working here.
Practice this.
Yes. It's not something that all of us have, but I got it. I learned it from Mark and I learned it from Terry.
You're here for the audience. No, knew we had the podcast.
Yeah, mostly it was because I knew we're supposed to do this podcast, whether we killed something or not. We were supposed to do it at 9 a.m. and I missed that mark, but I got my deer and took it into Oberle's Meat Market in St. Genevieve. And, there were 73 pounds that I dropped off.
Dang,
and I was a little surprised. And I guess I'll start at the beginning with the buck itself. So it's a deer that we call Holyfield. He had a big notch out of his ear. And so it made, I suck at naming deer, but I do like to name them from a standpoint of helping to know, hey, this is so-and-so.
You got to be able to ID them.
Yeah. It's not that I have 200 deer to ID. It's more like 4 or 6 or whatever.
But you want to be familiar.
Yeah, it is nice. And as Scott and I are talking, or even like Wayno is wanting to go up and hunt, and we've been communicating back and forth. It's helpful to kind of share pictures and names and say, yes, he's a shooter. No, he's not. So anyway, so this deer we call Holyfield. And, I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this because I have a deer from the past couple years that I've been chasing that he showed up late season 2 years ago. All right. And we called him the Clean 10. It was just a beautiful frame deer. And then last year he showed up and he was a monster for this farm. For me, it was just a giant deer. I'm thinking he would have been in the 60s last year. Wow. And his frame was just big, framey, tall, and he was a clean 9. He had dropped his extra point there at the end of his rack on his left side. So I thought, okay, well, I just kind of put it out of my mind. Scott had encountered him in Too Short at the very end of the season on a doe mission one day. And he shed his antlers like January 6th. Well, that was Too Short was hurt. And so anyways, this deer that we were chasing, he had showed up, he jumped the fence by Scott on like January 6th in the afternoon, 1:00 early. And that evening I got a reconics picture of him right, 75 yards from there.
Okay.
And he had dropped one side. And I thought, that was weird. I mean, it was pretty early in the process. And
Sure.
Early January is a little early to drop. And I asked Mark and Terry about it. Mark's like, usually it's not a good sign because it means they're injured or something's wrong with them. They're sick somehow, some way. So anyway, fast forward to the summer and I'm not getting him. Too Short showed back up. That was great. And this deer, Holyfield, I start calling him Holyfield because, like I said, he's got this notch out of his ear. He was easily identifiable.
Some people may not get the reference.
So Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear during a infamous match, a boxing match, late 90s, maybe early.
I think that was early 90s because that was
90s.
like 7th grade or something for me.
I'll never forget watching that. It's crazy. So anyhow, I know a lot of times guys will name their deer Holyfield. That's usually what it's referring to.
Sure.
So anyhow, summertime, getting tons of pictures of him on the analogics, and he's a major homeboy. But in the summertime, I get a lot of pictures of bucks that once the bachelor group split up, in velvet sheds. Usually, I have about 3, 4 maybe that are consistent in quotes, air quotes. And so anyhow, of all of them, he was actually consistent. And between all I popped up several cell cameras this year, and I had a lot of MRI from him throughout the whole, end of summer into the fall. And, I've been watching him closely. It's always been nighttime stuff. Very rarely had it been earlier, in the afternoon or early morning. Well, as we were getting, hitting that warm front this past weekend, I noticed him and this other big body deer, and they just had, to me, they were at the very least, they were 5-year-old bucks. Mm-hmm. And so as I was looking at these pictures, his characteristics, sometimes he reminded me of this, this late season 10, this clean 9 from last year. And I started to think it was him because he had tall G1s, he had tall G2s, he had tall G3s. It just kind of, and then he had the crab claw G4s. And I thought, you know what, this could be that deer. And he grew back to a clean 10 again. And so if that would have been the case, I would have thought he was actually 6.5 this year. So I go in there and I'm getting all these pictures. Him and this other deer is kind of a short tined 10-pointer who I wasn't absolutely sure I know of. I think it's this deer we called Stickers 10 from last year. And anyways, they're running together. I'm getting pictures of them all over the farm together, usually at night. But the last few days in that heat and that really, really hot stuff, they were showing up right at last light on this staging food plot, the staging plot that we have biologic radishes and final forage, and we put a muddy bull there. It's where I messed up my hunt with 2S2 last year, October the 6th. And, they just hammered this green food source. Well, over the weekend, the neighbor had harvested all of his corn, and all around us in the river bottoms, all the corn's getting taken out. Okay. And my corn was still there, and I still got beans. A lot of the farmers are starting to take out their beans. Well, as we get to the farm, our corn is out too. And I think that may partially be contributing to why I was seeing so many pictures the last few days. Yeah. Weather sucked, but they were up on their feet. I think all the combine, their bedding was getting shrunk, and they were walking, And so as I was watching the cameras, Friday, Thursday, we might've went Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was really monitoring them, and they were showing up right at dark. And it was kind of getting earlier and earlier, still dark, 7:30, then 7:12. And I'm thinking, all right, that, I might have a shot at this because the temperature change, they were forecasting it to be like 15-degree drop. I mean, it was a really big drop, but I don't think it ended up being quite as big, but it was so windy. A northwest wind blew in, it dropped the temperatures, and then the wind
were dropping pretty much all day.
They were. And then the wind died down right there at the end of the evening. And that was really key. I mean, we're sitting up on top of a ridge, and, our strategy, and this is something that I just, Mark and Terry, I kind of, just heard them over the years talk about, is instead of trying to go down in there, if you can help, and if you can prevent it, try to have a food source up top and bring them up to you.
Sure.
And so anyway, that's what that staging plot is. And wasn't a lot of deer out all day long. And then we got in super early. I checked all my cameras. I pulled all the cards on the way in.
Okay.
And we got into the blind at 3:30 probably. And I brought my laptop just to I thought, okay, we're going to be in early. Let's check the inventory.
Sure.
That way I'm going to jack with it later. And I mean, I had a lot of pictures, a lot of deer movement, but there was a scrape line that we kind of park next to and walk in the scrape line into our spot. And the scrape line popped up maybe 10 days ago or so. And I mean, it was, probably tire size scrapes and smaller, nice. Good size stuff. And so we hung a Reconyx camera on one of them and put a little buck bomb in there and freshened it up, 10 days ago. And so we finally had a chance to check that card. And so all the other cards are just mediocre. It was just okay. And that card, boom, 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 boom. Here comes Holyfield and here comes this short rack 10 and they're hitting that scrape. And, there's a couple other bucks that are hitting it. And I just kept thinking, okay, it was like consistently the few nights prior to, leading into this night.
Okay.
And I had one other picture from yesterday morning at 7:05, just off the food plot, where this Holyfield buck was going down into his bedding area.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, if these deer come up, I might have a shot at him coming out of the bedding early enough tonight. So 5:45 probably, all the does here, they start coming and they file out on the left side of us. And then all of a sudden, probably, I don't know, maybe 6:15, 6:20, somewhere in there, the short rack 10 popped out of this from the right side, popped out of the bedding and below us. And I even said to Scott, I go, he's early enough that
could have a buddy with him.
They've been running together. The cameras show us that. Holyfield went to bed here, 7:05. We might see him. And it wasn't maybe 2 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. Here he comes up out of the, we spotted horns and he come up out of the bedding and he comes right into the food plot and they kind of mess around a little bit and then they start eating and kind of just worked their way into the tree koi. So the short rack 10 kind of worked into the tree koi. And, as soon as he walked up, I put my Leopold's on him and we knew who he was. We both knew who he was right away. And I had been saying I couldn't tell from the Reconyx pictures whether he was a shooter or not a shooter, meaning he was a shooter, but could he was such a homeboy. Could he use another year and be a giant?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. And at that moment I decided no. So I put my binoculars on him and he's at least 5.5. After looking at him and studying him, I don't think he's the steer from the past few years, this clean 10. I don't think that's who he is. Cause that deer, unless this deer could just kind of shrunk, which they can do and then blow up again, too short. We got his sheds the past couple of years and he kind of shrunk last year. And then, he might blow this year.
Yeah.
He did blow this year, but anyhow, so we put binoculars on him. I decide right away, I'm going to shoot this deer and kind of just like what you're saying in my mind, I'm thinking, it's early enough. This changes, the dynamic of my life at home. This changes the dynamic of work. This changes the dynamic of the rest of the tags for the rest of the season, for the TV show.
Some of the things the guys around here have been saying about you.
Yeah. The bad hunter, horrible boss, those types
Sketchy
of things.
Individual.
Yeah. So it just changes the complexity of things. And besides that, this week I ran out of the last set of deer sausage that we had. So Lola's been
a complex ratio.
It really is. So Lola's been telling me, she's like, you're going to kill something tonight, right? We're out of Oberly dog, Dad. Like that's what she thinks,
I'm hungry.
And no matter what the deer sausage is, she always calls it Oberly dog because it's what we're our hometown.
It's the brand.
Yeah, it's the brand. So anyhow, so, to me, the switch that you talked about, it was flipped pretty instantly. I saw him. All right, binoculars down. I don't even need to look at him. I'm going to shoot him.
Game on.
So he comes in and I kind of get mixed up at one point. It happens pretty fast. And because, I'm trying to I'm in a muddy bull blind and I got to open the vertical window we're trying to juggle our chairs a little bit and move around and make sure I got the clearance to shoot and he can still film. It's a tight window. So the deer comes in, and as I'm opening the window, I peeked out, and I thought the deer that was close to the tree koi was him. It was actually the short rack 10.
Sure.
And I just didn't see, I just saw the body. I didn't really see his head. I thought it was him. And so I opened the window, getting ready to, ready for the shot, open the window, and they're at, that deer's at 25 steps, and I instantly see it's not him. And Holyfield's kind of to my right, out of my view a little bit from where I'm positioned. I'm like, crap. Cause I didn't want to open the window until, until it was time to shoot, just in case a wind gust or whatever, does were out, something look at us and bug out, and there goes the whole thing. So I range. So I see Holyfield, I range him, and he's at 30 steps, and he starts to and he's 1/4 2. So he starts to walk, and I have a HHA single pin. We've talked about it,
Sure. That's right. Yeah. It's your first kill with a single pin.
Yeah, it is. And that is a new level of complexity.
It's another thing. Yeah,
it is. But I do love using it. And so I range him at 30, and I think he just got to 27, 25, and those HHA, it does make a difference on those HHAs because I'm holding
individual yardage markers.
Yeah, exactly. Literally every yard you got a yardage marker. So I draw back, I settle in, and I let it rip. And I think he dropped a little bit, not a lot, but I spined him. He drops in his tracks. And so I knock another arrow instantly and follow-up shot. And that shot, he's kind of laying down and quartering away at that point. Yeah. I shot him broadside, and he's kind of laying down, quartering away, and I zip one up through him. It ends up going up through his heart, and he expired instantly. The exit was his heart.
Perfect.
And so it worked out. I hated, to have the mess up there with the spine shot, but it did work out okay. I think it was a culmination. I wasn't aiming for heart. I was aiming, in that V.
Okay.
And that's left, right. It was money, but it was about 2 inches high. And I think he dropped an inch or two, and just,
that's not
all
hard for them to do.
It was weird because I wouldn't have thought, as you look at it, I wouldn't have thought it would have spined him, but I think it kicked up when the slap happened. I was shooting a 2-3 Rage chisel collard, and the slap is so big. I think when it went in there, it kicked up a little bit and lodged underneath the spine. I don't think I hit him straight on spine. I think I lodged up underneath there and dropped. It stung him and dropped him. And so, because when I walked up on him, I had to pull it out, and it wasn't lodged sideways. I was pulling kind of out underneath. Yeah. So
it's a good thing that you put the second arrow in him, because if you would have just stunned that spine and then watched him get up.
Believe me, I was myself because crap. The first thing is, and I see it on video a lot, guys are, pumping their fists and high-fiving, and like, that ain't me, bro. Like I felt horrible. Like, let's get another one in him. I don't want him to get up. I don't want him to suffer.
Spine shots disturb me.
It is.
I've had a few myself, and I just don't like
them. I've had 2 other instances in my past, hunting experiences, and both of them sucked. And I hate it. Yeah. It's a crappy feeling. And so anyways, I was fortunate to hit, because I've had it to where his second shot was not been great. But this one, it just, was. So anyhow, he's expired in the field, and it's probably 6:30, 35, like right around the time you shot. And I'm thinking, holy crap, we did this, and we don't dead track him. There.
There's no question about it.
Exactly, which is rare.
A good feeling.
It is a good feeling. So, so that's the story. But
Sweet.
Holyfield's TKO down for the count.
A couple killers.
Yeah.
For now. It's over this.
Thank you, audience.
We have a live studio audience.
Yeah, they're clapping.
We really do have a live studio audience.
Yeah,
they just never pay attention.
Or like us.
Well, that's a given.
So that's
congratulations. I know you guys put in a ton of work for that deer, it's nice when it kind of comes together.
Yeah. So I was excited. I think Wayno's going to try to go up and hunt Thursday, Friday. And it's funny because he's like, so was that the biggest deer on the farm? It's like, no, there's a couple nicer ones than this. He was definitely a good deer, and I was excited happy to shoot him. And my wife was thrilled. And
so deer season's over, right?
Well, I think she understands that I'm going to take like a little break, but man, the end of October is going to be so awesome. I can't wait. Hopefully Chase, the guy I hunt with over in Illinois, is ready for me because I'm coming over at the end of October.
I'm really thinking about buying an Illinois tag.
Yeah. Why not? If you got a spot to go, why not?
The why not is the money, because it ain't cheap to go over to Illinois.
It was at
I think it's
75, 425
for all in for archery. I think it's like closer to 6 when you buy your
the habitat stamp and
your
the
hunting license and everything.
You might be right. It might be like $375 for the tag itself, and then all those other things on top of it.
Yeah. I'm looking at the all in. But yeah, it's funny because we're never satisfied, right? Like nothing's ever good enough. There's always something new and shiny to chase. It didn't take me long last night after I got home. I was thinking, okay, so what's next? Well, maybe get Sophie a deer, maybe Beth. Yeah. Maybe I can start looking at going to Illinois. Got to start thinking about rifle season. Like there's always
it's funny you say that because I'm thinking the same thing. It's like, maybe I could take Cam up to Dad's for gun season for the weekend, even though he wouldn't be hunting, but like just for like the family, we haven't done that in the past couple of years. I didn't go to Dad's once last year. So
yeah, I mean, you can enjoy the social aspect of deer hunting. I got Sophie out with that Mission Crossbow you have this past weekend. She had a close encounter. She actually got a shot on a doe.
It's exciting.
And it was so exciting. I mean, I stood up in the blind to mess with a camera or something. So I'm standing there and the blind is on the lower side of the food plot. It's really a dirt plot. It just got too dry. And so the browse pressure and the drainage just didn't work out very well, but they still come to it. And she's like, doe, dad, there's a doe. And I'm looking at her and her eyes are as big as saucers. And I kind of bend down to look out the blind window. And sure enough, there's a doe at 25 yards broadside in the food
Your
plot.
head's out the window.
Right. What, honey?
Hey, wait a minute. I got to get ready.
So I'm kind of freaking out internally, trying to be calm to get her going and everything. And so she shot way low. I don't even know that she really fully aimed. She shot the crossbow before. She shoots it well, but we all know it's different when there's an animal in the scope.
Yeah.
So that close encounter made her very hungry for another opportunity.
Good.
So we're going to try to get it done. And now I don't have the pressure of killing a buck and I can focus a little more on that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. You got meat for the freezer now. So your wife's happy. You're happy because of the monkeys off the back from last year.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
It's all good.
And I'm happy for you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. It was funny because I texted Scott I texted a little group that we have, a little archery group. And Scott's like, well, we're taking pictures up here too. Cause I was calling to see if any of my buddies could come help out with photos.
Justin Lurk killed a deer last night as well up in Kansas City at his lease.
There are people who say that the DeerCast prediction is fake. It just kind of follows the natural trend of when deer season, when deer activity kind of heats up. But you get an outlier like last night where it's poor, bad, and then you got a great.
Yeah. And hell, mine was like good, great. It went from great to good, great because of the wind being so high.
Yep.
But it was getting great when it needed to be. There the last, 20, 30 minutes.
And some people ask us about that. Like, why does it change so much? Well, it's reacting to real-time weather models that are pumping in new and updated information.
Yeah. So Mark and Terry, as they looked at every condition, so they'll go through, there's 13 or 14 different weather variables that they're looking for. And those change for every phase of the deer season.
They're weighted
differently. So everything's got a kind of a scale, complex scale that's all weighted together and kind of plays together. And there's a difference between 29.94, 29.95 and 29.96. That's a difference in the barometric pressure. There's a difference in wind speed. 9 to 12 is better than, and I'm, don't quote me on these numbers, but better than say a 15 to 20 or whatnot.
Sure.
So all those things play into it. So if your wind's kicking up, all of a sudden it might be kicking down the prediction for certain times of the year. If your cloud cover is rolling in, that might be kicking down the prediction because it tends to, for the most part, subdue movement a little bit. So it's a lot of little factors like that, but it isn't just some BS that we pulled out of our butts. I mean, it's like, 30, 40 years of each of them of their own lives observing deer movement and kind of putting it into one spot.
The devil's in the details with that stuff.
Yeah.
And for folks who know Mark and Terry personally, those guys are into the details.
Well, and even, they're constantly messing with that algorithm. I think it's been tweaked 2 or 3 times this year yet, this season. They're constantly, if they feel like it's a little pessimistic or optimistic, we dive into it. Terry and Mark and myself have a group text and it's like, hey, what do you guys think of this? Or if I see something odd, I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Or even I've had guys send me DMs on Instagram saying, this just something seems off, and I'll plug in the city and state. And I'm like, man, that does seem wrong. Yeah. Cause I never know if they have their DeerCast custom moved or their peak estrus moved. All those things affect it. And, so we tweak it all the time to make sure it's honed in the way it should be. And if it doesn't match up with what Mark and Terry feel like, they'll change it, So I don't know. I don't know how other apps work, but I don't know that much thought's put into it.
Yeah, there's definitely a commitment to helping people be successful.
Yeah,
because time in the woods is precious.
Well, sure. I said it last night in my here, and I get it. We work here. It's our company's app. I get it, but I fully believe between that and the cell cameras, it helped me kill the deer way earlier than I would have normally. Yeah, because I just stayed out when I should have, and I went in when I should have.
Well, I told you guys I had a dentist appointment yesterday, and I didn't. I just went hunting.
And I was okay with that because I wasn't here.
As long as you kill, it works.
Well, I wasn't here to know that. I left too.
Where is Tim? He's not answering his phone.
So anyhow,
well, that's it. Speaking of helping people, last year we had a listener like Pat Powers or something. Paul Powers.
I don't remember.
Alliteration. This week for our question of the day, it's brought to you by Clayton Corn.
Wonder if he lives in Iowa.
Be a good place.
All right. Question of the day is probably brought to you by HHA, makers of the Tetra lineup of vertical and crossbow sights. Don't settle for less than the best.
I would like to win a hunt with Mark Drury. I am a big fan of your guys' show and would love to have the experience to hunt with you guys and be on your TV show.
After this experience, he may not have wanted to. I hope he doesn't listen to this. I added that sound. I apologize. Tim told me ahead of time that there was a long pause.
I go under the bus.
And that I should put that noise in there and time it out. Turns out I did do that.
You're impressionable.
Yes.
Tim made me do it.
Tim made me do it.
Clayton, thank you for the... It's not really a question. I guess it's, can I go on with Mark and Terry?
I think it just was an excuse for you to make me do that.
Pretty much. It's a long play for a setup.
Yes.
If you want to leave us a question of the day, just go to the show notes, click the link in there. It'll take you to the podcast webpage. Click the send voicemail button and leave your name, location, and brief question, and we will make you fart.
All right. So it was a good point. He wants to hunt with Mark and Terry. We have a hunt giveaway going on right now in DeerCast. Not only that, but we're also giving away a brand new Can-Am Defender. So it's kind of split into two different giveaways. The Can-Am Defender, we're going to give away here at the end of December, kind of a Can-Am Christmas.
Ooh, it's good.
That's right. Off the top of my head, just boom.
Wow.
That's how quick it is. And then the second one will be in July with Mark and Terry of 2021, so that we can have you in camp with us that fall of 2021. Dang. It's a 2-day hunt at Mark's Missouri place and a 2-day hunt at Terry's Missouri place, and any weapon of your choice. So, addle. So
please show up to Mark's farm.
At least, even if you weren't serious, just show up with it and be like,
maybe a loincloth.
Yeah.
And just play it straight.
Yeah. So there's your chance to win a hunt with Mark and Terry, or to win a Can-Am, or who knows, to win both. Because once you're entered, you are entered in to win both.
You imagine how many people would hate the person that potentially won both things.
Yes, not us, because we have to track these people down.
We do.
So
it would make things easier.
Yes,
but
it's like spinding a deer. It's not preferable, but
you can do it.
It can happen.
I'm interested to hear what kind of conspiracy theories are going to pop up with this giveaway, because last year we had people people accusing us of some kind of shenanigans on giving away the farm. It was
something that
clandestine project to give our Missouri friends property.
No, the one I loved was that we had hunted it for years, killed all the big deer, and then wanted to give it away.
Used it and then losed it.
We used it, abused it, and then losed it.
Sorry, Denny. We killed all your deer.
Well, that's really just not true because we had bought the piece just for the giveaway and never touched it other than improving it. So.
We talked about even sending someone up there to film a hunt on it, but we decided, no, we're just going to let it sit fallow. And
so anyways, we've had a couple guys, Mark and Terry have donated hunts to this foxhole shootout the last few years for Mossy Oak Properties. And the hunt winners that we've had come in, they're all 100% success. It's been a great time. You know, I think we've gotten lucky and had some really good people that have won those hunts and we've had a really enjoyable time. So anyways, all you got to do is make sure you have the new version of the app downloaded, or you can go to DeerCast.com, lower right-hand screen. There's a icon that says giveaway. You click on it, you put your info in, and boom, you're ready to go.
How much does it cost to enter?
Nothing. You don't even have to be a pro or an elite user. You just got to go sign up. Now, there are some restrictions. There are a few state restrictions.
Height restrictions.
I'm screwed. No. So it's Florida, New Jersey, New York,
maybe New Hampshire in there. There's 3 or 4 states that have really difficult laws around sweepstakes.
Yeah, in Canada. So
Canada is not a state.
Well, it's a restriction. So I apologize ahead of time. Tim also made me do this. He came to me and said, you cannot. I said, we got to put these states in. Tim said, you cannot put these states in. I have a personal
vendetta against New York State.
Well, so there's a lot of good people there. They get a bad rap.
Are there?
There are. In the state part, yes.
Name 3.
Mike Furia Jr.
Oh, come on now.
Those are people, Tim.
And then Mike Furia the third.
Drawing a blank.
There's only 2 good people in New York.
There's other people I know.
You know what sucks is their governments.
Yes.
I'll just say that.
Well, and those people that live in the upper end of New York can't control that. So
yeah, it's kind of like Illinois and Chicago.
Yeah. So
I digress.
Right. We should not get into politics. We've got our hands slapped for that. Let's not go back down that path.
Good times. Okay. So speaking of slapping, wildlife word.
Got him.
It's brought to you by Hunter Specialties, makers of the comprehensive scent away line of scent elimination products. Ooh-wee. And I sprayed myself down last night before hitting the stand.
Yeah, we always do. And somebody asked me the other day, it's like, well, why do you spray down and then use nose jammer? It's kind of an oxymoron, but it really isn't, because we're spraying down like our backpacks, our, my hat, our clothes, hair. Yeah. And then really all I'm doing is using the nose jammer for a cover scent on my boots. That's how I use it. And I know they make a full line too of soaps and detergents and all that, but I try to stay scent free with everything I do, and then just do a little cover spray on my boots. And then when I get in the stand, try to spray the tree on the upwind side. Yeah.
Downwind side. Are you wearing Brute right now by Fabergé?
Yes. Yes.
The expensive stuff.
That is right. Yes.
$200 is $200.
Yeah, you can't argue. I'll spray it on the inside of my, especially on the inside of my my muddy harness, because that can absorb sweat. The same thing with my backpack straps.
That's a good thought.
And the back side of the backpack.
Ozone that. I mean, that's one thing they tell you probably not to ozone is your safety harness.
Yeah, you don't want to degrade the rubber that's in there. But yeah, so I sprayed down and it worked.
All right.
So speaking of spray and chemicals, this is less of a word and more of a trivia question. Of the 63 chemical compounds found in doe urine, Matt's already like, I'm screwed.
I wasn't paying attention, and then you said 63. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to listen.
Of the 63 chemical compounds found in doe urine, how many are only found when the doe is in heat?
1.
I'll give you some options.
Okay.
So 1 is one of the options. A, is it 1? B, is it all 63? C, is it 2? D, is it 13? 1, 63, 2, or 13. And there are 63 total chemical compounds.
I'm going with 1.
You suck, Matt.
You do.
It's 13?
It's 13.
Damn it.
Yes.
I almost went with 13 because of the show 13.
You should have.
Yeah.
Cut that out. Let's go back and we'll redo it. Make it look smartlier.
That's right. You like that sound effect?
There was a guy, I was reading an article by a guy that does spectrology on chemical compounds. He found doe urine in a bottle in a rental car that he was using, and he got interested. And so he did like a chromatograph of what is in doe urine and did a bunch of research. And people have researched this because there are urine, there are scent companies that use it. But apparently there are only certain compounds that exist when a doe is in heat. And that's what the urine companies try to isolate, are those particular compounds, because a buck can tell, like, okay, this doe is in heat, or they're about to be, or they are not at all. It's amazing.
Dude, as we were cutting that deer up last night and just looking at the different tendons and all the different things, it's just like, man. And Trevor, who helped us, he knows deer anatomy really, really well, and he's pretty much a pro at doing all that stuff. And I was just looking at it in amazement. It's like, holy crap, man. Like, first of all, this would have took me days.
There's a lot of work there.
Yeah. And like I said, there was 73 pounds of meat that we pulled off of that deer. He was a big body buck.
It makes you feel good that you've harvested as much as you can off of it and didn't waste it. The rib meat on my deer last night, I left because all the gutty works kind of got up in there, and it was tainted, and I didn't bother with it.
Yeah.
But I normally like to trim out the rib meat.
As every little part that we trimmed out, I'm like, Tim uses this part. I've heard Tim talk about
this.
That's
a pretty safe bet. Yeah.
Tim makes tacos out of this.
Right. And my kids eat it because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
The one thing I've not eaten is the tongue. And I'm not opposed to it. I just never think about it. You're in such a flurry of activity to get everything done. And it got down to 48 last night, which is cool, but not cool enough. So I skinned it out last night and let it hang, and then got to it at 6 a.m. this morning and finished deboning it.
Yeah.
Then put my makeup on and came into the studio. Should have said that part, shouldn't I?
Well, it just doesn't look like it.
Stupid. All right. We should probably
I think I'm going to throw up.
Thank you, Barb.
All right. Stay tuned next week, because guess who the guest is next week?
Well, I know where you're going with this, and it's a guest because we don't have a guest potentially, but I actually think we will have a guest. So I've been trying to speak with a guy that we've known for a long, long time. He used to film Terry and Mark back. I'm talking when I first started 16 years ago. He was a camera guy that helped us out. His name's Brad Clement, and this guy is a real treasure. All right. And I say that really honestly because he's from the St. Louis, Missouri area. And he's summited Everest from both sides several times, which, now I know there's a lot of people, do that. But at the time when he was starting, it was still pretty, it wasn't quite as popular as it is today.
Yeah.
And he has some pretty harrowing stories about trips up the mountain. And I'd love to, I know that's not exactly hunting, but he's also got a horrific hunting accident story from an elk hunt that he was taking part in out in Colorado, which is where he lives now. And he's a DIY guy, and he's a very knowledgeable woodsman and survivalist, really, is what he is. And he's summited the toughest mountains and terrains across the world, the highest peaks.
I can't wait to talk to him.
He truly is an amazing dude, and I hope that I've been trying to. So he had a bad accident 2 weeks ago, and so he communicates with Dad and I on occasion, and Dad sent Mark and I this message. He's like, it was a picture of Brad, and I mean, he was out in a tent, out, and he was all beat up looking and looked like he just got the tar beat out of him, and it just. You were like, holy crap, what happened? And he's like, man, a bunch of rocks fell on his head when he was out elk hunting. And so anyway, so I reached out to him a couple of days later. I was like, hey, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And at that time, it was still a lot of guys were out elk hunting. I know it's kind of dying down now, but anyways, I think it'd still be a great story to tell. And then I hope to get into some of his other journeys and experiences.
Love to hear about Everest.
Anytime he comes into town, we meet up for a beer, and it'll be a 4-hour, night at the bar listening to stories of Brad tell. It's just amazing. Like Dad and I just listen to him and be like, oh my, like people are out there that are really, really nuts. Yeah. And he's one of them. Well, and he's the most unassuming, nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's not some, you wouldn't think that he's no Cam Hanes, fitness guy, but guarantee you he could climb a mountain, and back down and it wouldn't, wouldn't even hardly breathe heavy. I mean, he's just one of those kind of guys. It's amazing.
Yeah. Some of those guys that got nothing to prove are the most effective because they just do it. Yeah.
So anyway, we're working on him. I hope that he was out of town this week. And so I'm hoping to get him on board next week. And he slowed down from all his world travels with COVID and everything. It really put a damper on some of the plans that they had. But anyhow, hopefully we'll have him on next week and it'll be... I lost it.
Well, if you're thinking about summiting Everest, then tune in next week because that'll be the show for you.
It'll be
huge.
That was worth the buildup.
Well,
it was worth the second run.
This damn thing, if I could get it, I need bigger font on here to know what I'm looking for. Better descriptions.
Behold God dang it, guys. Of age.
I'm going to blame somebody out there.
Get you some podcast bifocals.
Yeah.
We'll get like a bifocal company.
I have contacts, so it's supposed to be 2020. All right.
Let's shut this thing down.
Please.
Thanks for watching. Leave us comments. Tell your friends. Subscribe to the show.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Share, subscribe, talk about us in a good way or bad. I don't actually care.
Yeah, complain about us.
All right. I hope everybody's having great luck. And if you aren't yet, there's a huge front coming. This probably airs Wednesday, the 14th. Big front coming through Thursday, Friday, and then the end of October, early November. Weather permitting, going to be awesome.
Going to be great.
We're getting close. All right. It's going to be huge. All right. Till next time. Peace out.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops in Cabela's.